period?
I said, thank you for the break, Your Honor. I had something I needed to sign related to what happened yesterday.
May be seated.
Yes, sir. The defense would call Detective Jennifer Holz.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I know you had a very, very late night.
Yes, sir.
Let's just get through this, okay?
Okay.
First, I want to just talk briefly about Rebecca Torgerson. You're aware from your work in the investigation of the case that it's Rebecca Torgerson who identified Doug Koplitz as someone law enforcement should talk to concerning this case?
Initially, during her first interview, she did not want to give his name, but she eventually did, yes.
And then, right, her first interview was October 27, 2011, right?
Right,
And then she was interviewed 4 days later, right?
right.
And then after telling you in her first statement that she essentially knows nothing, it's in her second statement that she tells you Torgerson made admissions to her about Miss Lowe's homicide. Do I have that right?
I don't know that, I wouldn't classify it as her initial statement saying she initially didn't know anything. I believe she said something along the lines of she wouldn't put it past him or something. But yes, in the second interview, the one on October 31st, she was much more detailed.
What I'm getting at, in the first statement, she didn't tell you things that Torgerson said to her like she did in the second statement.
Correct. Correct.
I have that right?
Yes.
In that second statement, she said that, did she not, that after Mr. Torgerson killed Miss Lowe, he came back to Andrea's house all bloody.
I think he said I believe she said with blood, with a bloody shirt, something along those lines.
Would it refresh your recollection if you reviewed your report to determine what she had said?
Yes, sir.
For debate, counsel?
976 or 954, depending on the numbering system.
Debates numbers, the number.
Okay, so 976.
May I approach it? May.
Yes, sir.
That's your report of the October 31, 2011 interview with Miss Torgerson, correct?
Yes.
And does that refresh your recollection about what she said about Mr. Torgerson's alleged condition after he killed Miss Lowe and went back to Andrea's house?
Yes.
And what does it say?
It says he came back to her house all bloody.
Can we repeat that back if I may? You were here on March 17th, 2017 for her sworn testimony in this matter, correct?
Yes.
And you heard her indicate that her ex-husband has told her that he, as I understood her testimony, wiped Miss Lowe's apartment clean with bleach. You heard that?
I did.
Has she ever previously reported that to police?
No.
When I asked her if she did, remember she said she had, right? If you remember.
I don't remember exact.
Yeah. I know. I may have it wrong. It was a lot. But if she had reported that to you in the past, that Torgerson told her that after the homicide he wiped the place clean with bleach, that's something you would have documented, right?
Of course, yes.
In fact, in her October 27, 2011 statement, she brought up the issue of bleach in another context. Remember what she said?
Yes.
Right, she said she heard in the community that bleach had been used at the scene of Miss Lowe's homicide, correct?
Yes.
Is it your understanding that she is an associate or is familiar with, has hanged around with Doug Coplitz and Adam Smith, if you know?
Doug Coplitz, yes. Adam Smith, I couldn't say for certain.
Got it. Let's move on to Eric Mahomes, who you were involved in some interviews with pre-trial, right?
Yes.
I know Captain Barnes did some as well, and then you joined one, I think, at one point in time. Do I have that right?
Right.
Okay. And you were here on March 16th of this year, just last week, I guess, when he testified about his knowledge with crack cocaine recovered from Stephanie Lowe's apartment, right?
Yes.
The 26 grams if you measure the substance, or if you measure the baggies, right?
Right.
You agree with me that his testimony and his various statements over time about his connection to that crack cocaine has been a little confusing, varying?
In the early stages, yes.
And you say in the early stages, did you, based on your involvement in the investigation, was his trial testimony consistent with what he had said before trial? You understand what I'm saying?
What I recall is in the beginning, during the very first few days of the investigation, Mr. Mahomes didn't want to admit his involvement in crack cocaine trafficking, but he eventually did so and was subsequently charged with those offenses.
But he's been kind of back and forth, has he not, over time, including through trial, with whether he had anything to do with the 42 grams, or, yeah, the 26 grams plus packaging found on October 10th, right?
Yes, and what I gather from that is that because he wasn't present, physically present, I think he's trying to distance himself from that particular shipment or load of crack cocaine, if you will.
In an October 11, 2010 interview with yourself and Captain Barnes, he indicated Miss Lowe did deliver crack cocaine regularly, right?
Yes.
And did allow people to come to the house, right?
Yes.
And he said, but I recently told her to stop that, right?
Yes.
In a January 27, 2011 interview with you and Marathon County Sheriff's Deputy Nathan Pauls, Investigator Pauls, right?
Correct.
He said that when he came home from work on Thursday, October 7th, he saw crack cocaine inside Miss Lowe's dresser drawer that he had received on a front. Remember that?
I don't. I would have to review that.
Let me find that for you, okay? It's the January 27th. January 26, 2011, I'm off a day, but you still don't remember it, right?
No.
Okay,
Just page.
739 and following. Would it refresh your recollection if you got a chance to look at the report?
Yes, sir.
You can keep your eyes open?
Yes.
Okay. May I approach? You may.
Okay.
So what I was wondering, do I have this right? That he said in that interview, when he came home from work on Thursday, October 7th, he saw crack cocaine inside Miss Lowe's dresser drawer that he had received on a front.
Yes, that's what it says.
Well, that's what he reported, and that's what he said and got reported, right?
Correct, in 2011. I believe his statement was different in 2010,
Yeah.
however.
Right. Do you remember you conducting a January 31, 2014 phone call interview with him where he said he typically didn't get involved in the crack cocaine customers served by him and Miss Lowe?
I recall him saying he didn't get personally involved with them.
Okay. May I approach your retreat? Thank you. All right, that's all I want to cover with Mr. Mahomes. And now I want to talk to you about one final witness in the case who you have, I know, extensive dealings with, and that's Andrea Wilinski, okay?
Okay.
And, I mean, you've dealt with Ms. Wilinski, communications with her for, I think I counted about 5.5 years, right?
Correct, yeah.
During that time period, did you note any problems with her memory? I think here's what I'm getting at. I mean, you heard her testify. I don't even know the day. This week in this trial, you heard her, right?
Yes.
And you heard her indicate when asked about several statements she's made to law enforcement in the past that she couldn't remember, right?
Right.
I mean, did you think in general she had poor memory?
No.
And when you would talk to her over the course of the 5.5 years, there were a lot of interviews, weren't there?
Yes.
I mean, would you generally have her attention? Would she make eye contact with you, or would she stare away?
She was attentive.
During her first interview by telephone with Detective Buckner, that was on March 8, 2011. You remember that testimony, right?
Yes.
That's really when she started, the first time she was contacted, her obstruction of the ongoing investigation began then.
I guess I'm a little careful around it since this witness would have first-hand knowledge she was not present for that interview.
Okay. Were you aware of her consents to searches and crime lab analysis of her Skeeter boat in May 2011?
No, sir. I was not involved in the investigation at that point.
Okay. So we'll go to November 7, 2011, which is when you visit her residence on Charles Street this is the get the shoes visit, right?
Correct.
And during that visit, When asked, she said Torgerson never came home during the overnight hours of October 9, 2010, right?
Right.
Yes, I'm going to object, Your Honor. If this is to be a prior and consistent statement, I don't consider it to be a prior and consistent statement, so I don't believe that it is appropriate hearsay.
Well, in my response is she was confronted with these prior statements and indicated that she couldn't recollect. Repeatedly.
Can you repeat the question,
I
please?
can. Said Torgerson never came home during the overnight hours of October 9, 2010, right?
Right.
Said he took the boat up alone to the cabin from her condo, right?
I believe at one point she mentioned Rich. I don't know when that was.
She didn't. She said, based upon her recollection, she gave directions verbally over the phone, right?
Yes.
She told you it was strange Torgerson failed to report to police he took the boat up north, right?
She agreed that was strange that he left that out, yes.
And then she said, but he has lied to her, and he is not the person she thought he was, right?
Right.
I mean, really what she was doing, do you agree, on November 7, 2011, is creating some ruse to throw you off any discovery of her crime. Did you agree?
I object. That calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Was she candid with you on November? I'll make it simple. Was she honest with you on November 7, 2011?
Action inappropriate examination. Can't ask her for it. This was honest or not.
Sustained.
Did she provide information consistent with your investigation on November 7, 2011?
Consistent with the entire investigation, or
Right.
like as of what I know now looking back?
Of course.
Yes. No, she did not.
November 9, 2011, this is the lengthy interview at Wausau Police Department, right?
Right?
Now, have you reviewed the video of this interview? You know, fairly recently.
Not recently, no.
Well, but do you recall that, you know, in these early interviews, she's pretty much at ease, isn't she? Or would you disagree?
I would disagree.
Well, is she, on November 9, 2011, is she crying?
All the interviews kind of meld together for me as well. I do, in particular, recall one interview where it kind of seemed like she didn't want to leave. She was crying and very emotional towards the end, and basically claimed that she was finding out a lot of things about Mr. Torgerson that she didn't know, and she didn't know what he was capable of. And in my opinion, she didn't want to leave that interview. We basically had to give her an extended period of time to calm herself so that she could drive home.
What date was that?
Again, I don't recall. It was one of those later interviews just prior to her eventually.
Good. Here's what I'm getting at, and just let me know. Don't agree with this before this jury. Prior to February 12, 2013, she was trying to convince you, was she not, that she had nothing to do with the hiding of Miss Lowe's corpse. Okay?
She was misleading us, yes.
November 9, 2011, do you remember her saying there was nothing unusual about that weekend?
Yes.
Do you remember her saying Torgerson took the boat up north while she had the kids, including her son that started with the name T, correct?
Yes.
Now, we know that T was never even around, right?
Correct.
And that's her son.
Correct.
On this November 9, 2011 interview, she said, quote, "I know for sure," quick quote, "that she did not see Ferguson until the next day, October 10, 2010, correct?"
Correct.
That's actually technically true, right?
It is.
But you really were meaning to ask if she saw him in the middle of the night, right?
Right.
And she told detectives that the persistence with taking the boat up north was so that Torgerson should park his Jeep in the garage where the boat typically is, right?
Yes.
And she was asked in this early interview, November 9, 2011, whether she was ever involved in Torgerson's drug trafficking after Miss Lowe's disappearance, correct?
Yes.
And she said she never was involved, right?
Can you refresh my memory? Is that the conversation regarding Kano?
Yeah, November 9, 2011. You want to see your report?
Yes, please.
Sure, page.
1092. May I approach, Judge? There you go.
I would disagree with your statement, sir.
Okay, well, does she report, you're talking to her about whether she assisted Torgerson in drug trafficking after October 10th. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Does she tell you during the course of that interview that she traveled to the great state of Minnesota with Torgerson to obtain drugs?
I guess I'm going to object, John. I don't think that's fair characterization of her testimony. Her testimony, she drove along with him, but I don't think she accompanied him to procure drugs.
But I'll rephrase the question. Did she tell you on the date that we're talking about? Okay. November 9, 2011. You with me?
Yes.
Did she tell you that she went to Minnesota with Torgerson? Traveled with him?
I don't know that that had happened yet in 2011.
Okay. Did she tell you that she held money for Torgerson that was related to drug trafficking?
Yes.
She told you on that date, November 9th, 2011?
Yes.
Is it in the report?
Yes.
Where does it say? What's it say?
Would you like me to read it to you?
Sure.
What page?
1094. Under Torgerson's current activities, Wodinsky also acknowledged that she believes Torgerson is probably currently involved in drug sales. She stated he more frequently uses her van and will often fill it up after using it, although he is unemployed. She stated that he has not stayed with her for some time, and she suspects he is staying with a new girlfriend, Savannah Cease. Wodinsky stated she knows Torgerson's associate, Kano, who I know from previous drug investigations to be Ka-Yang Zhang. I also know from previous drug-related investigations that Kano is involved in selling crystal methamphetamine in the Wausau area. Wodinsky acknowledged that she has been sent to Kano's house, which is near Walgreens in Wausau, by Torgerson to get money since Torgerson has been in jail. Wodinsky stated she went there once and received $40 from Kano and also moved Torgerson's vehicle from Kano's house back to her garage where it is currently being stored.
So she talked about $40, right?
Yes.
Did she talk about any other drug trafficking monies
No.
that she held?
Not on that date, no.
And she didn't talk about providing drug trafficking monies to others who could purchase drugs, correct?
Again, I don't believe that happened in 2011.
Detective Buckner asks her in that interview whether Torgerson ever confided in her about Stephanie Lowe in any way, shape, or form. Do you remember that?
Did he use those exact words?
Yeah, or, yes. Or tell you what, or anything to that effect, that message. Detective Buckner asking her whether Torgerson talked to her about what happened to Stephanie Lowe.
In this interview?
Yep.
I'm seeing Wadinsky stated that she has asked Torgerson if he has anything to do with Stephanie Lowe's disappearance, but she has never asked him directly if he killed Stephanie.
So, she's denying she knows anything, right?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Did
The
you-
words speak for themselves.
Okay, Judge, I'll move on. Is she truthful in this interview about what she knows about the Stephanie Lowe homicide investigation? Yes or no?
No.
She's asked whether she's told that a dog had a positive alert on a boat. Remember that?
Yes.
And she said, "I don't know what to think about that. I don't know how to process it right now." Remember that?
Yes, I recall that being the time when she started to get emotional and upset.
Yeah, I'm just asking about her words, though.
Okay.
And do you remember talking about being emotional upset? You remember saying, if we pull your phone records, will it show you were not near the cabin? Remember asking her that?
Yes.
What did she say?
She said they shouldn't.
November 10, 2011, that's when you go to her residence to get some of Torgerson's clothes, correct?
Yes.
During that contact, she makes no disclosures to neither Lieutenant Kolb nor yourself about her role in the Stephanie Lowe homicide case, correct?
Correct.
December 21, 2011, she reports in an interview, quote, "I don't remember him coming home," quick quote, right?
Right.
And she gives an explanation for why there might have been a switch of vehicles, and she said, quote, "That's a good question," quick quote, right?
We asked her if there may have been a switch of vehicles, and she said, she did reply, "That's a good question."
She's asked at the end of this interview, did you see the boat that day? Remember that question? Did you see the boat that day?
I recall something vaguely, yes.
What'd she say?
I believe she said no.
She lied.
She lied.
A federal law enforcement special agent by the name of William Fulton of the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives gets involved in the investigation of Stephanie Lowe's homicide, correct?
Yes.
And you brought him with you to Miss Wadinsky's residence on Charles Street on February 12, 2013, correct?
Yes.
And there was a dual purpose for that meeting, is you wanted to eventually, at some point in time in that meeting, confront Miss Wadinsky about her cell phone records showing she was in Antigo, Wisconsin on the morning of October 10, 2010 at approximately 11 o'clock a.m., right?
Right.
And the other confrontation that was to go on was to bring to Miss Wadinsky's attention that there is some investigation of any drug activity she might be assisting, correct?
Correct.
When you confront her with her phone records showing that she was in Antigo on the morning in question, you did that because she had for months previous claimed she never left Wausau that morning and stayed with her children, correct?
Right.
Yet when you confront her with those phone records, she still maintains that she didn't leave the home, correct?
She claims she doesn't remember what she says she offers something. She could have gone to the grocery store.
Yeah, we'll get into that, okay? But obviously you're asking these questions because you're interested in knowing whether she accompanied Torgerson on the burial trip, right?
Of course.
And so she starts saying to you in this interview about people she knows in Antigo, I think a guy named Junior, I forget the other person, who she might have been visiting that morning, correct?
That was the purpose of me asking the question, to refute that, should she come back with that as an excuse. But Yes, I asked her if she knew anybody in Antigo, and that was her response.
And then she brings up the possibility that she was shopping in that town that morning, right?
Right,
And she brings up the possibility that she was driving her infant to get her to sleep that morning, right?
right,
And then she brings up the possibility she was transferring the children to Jackie Miller, who happens to be Rebecca Torgerson's mother, right?
right.
She's pressed about what she did that morning, and she said, quote, "I stayed with his kids. Who else would stay with his kids?" Quote, quote, correct?
Right,
And she's told that now a federal agent is involved based on her involvement with drug trafficking, helping with drug trafficking, right? She's
Right.
told that.
yes,
And on that score, she says, well, how am I helping Torgerson do that, or something to that effect, right? She's oblivious to that claim, right?
right,
Remember, the federal agent says, now we are involved.
yes,
And then remember Ms. Wadzinski saying, quote, "So then what do I need to do," quit quote, right?
right,
And then you said, quote, "We can work through this, okay? We can do this together," quit quote. Do I have that right?
right,
Ms. Wadzinski says, "I just can't get my kids taken away. I can't." Remember that?
yes,
And you said, "It's not our intention," correct?
correct,
Then you say, "So we're going to work together and do our best, okay? We're on your side, Andrea," correct?
correct,
You continue, "Because we're doing this, okay? If we're going to do this, we're going to do this together, and I'm going to help you, but we need it all, okay?" Correct?
correct,
Ms. Wadzinski said she had no idea that assisting Torgerson with drug dealing would get her in trouble, correct?
she may have, I don't recall that specifically, but,
Well, she continued to assert that she really didn't understand how she was responsible for anything illegal with drug trafficking. Fair?
fair, she was minimizing her involvement in that,
And do you remember you responding, "Well, we can work with that, okay? And all we need is your cooperation." Remember that?
yes,
She expresses concern about losing her job, correct?
yes,
Now, these are all questions I asked her about the other day, and she didn't remember this, right? Do I have that right?
I don't remember exactly what she said,
When she asked concern about losing her job, and that's as a nurse, right?
right,
Do you remember you saying, "No, I don't foresee that happening at all. We can certainly discuss that more."
correct,
And then she's going to be taken to the Wausau Police Department to continue the interview, right?
right,
There, you remember she said that after he came home from Wabeno that morning, strike that, I have this wrong, I'm sorry. No, I have it right. She says that after he came back from Wabeno, she didn't remember him leaving either her condominium or the Fergie Street apartment. Do you remember that?
I don't,
All right. Remember, she said as far as Torgerson going back to clean up, saying, quote, "I don't think that ever happened," quit quote.
I do,
Okay? At the end of that interview, you recall her asking if she needs a lawyer.
I don't,
You remember Lieutenant Cole saying, "Right now, we're not looking at you in a criminal way. We're hoping you're on our side," quit quote. Do you remember that?
yes,
On March 5, 2013, I am coming near the end, okay, Detective?
okay,
On March 5, 2013, that's the day that she brings Kristopher Torgerson's keys into you, okay? If that rings a bell.
okay,
Do you remember that she says at the end of that interaction, quote, "Once you find the body, what type of charges am I looking at?" quit quote. Do you remember her asking that?
I do,
And do you remember your reply, "We are not thinking about that as an option for you at all. Since you have cooperated, it is not going to be our recommendation that you are charged," quit quote. Do you remember that?
yes,
Arrangements were made for Ms. Wadinsky to testify on April 3, 2013 in front of a federal grand jury. You know that?
I know that. I wasn't present for that, nor did I make those arrangements.
Okay, that was made, do you have personal knowledge that was made by federal authorities?
Yes.
And are you aware that Ms. Wadinsky has been provided some federal government assistance of some monies as part of an emergency witness assistance program funds? Are you aware of that?
I am aware of that.
To the tune of $3,300.
I don't know the amount.
Last area of inquiry, okay?
Okay.
You have drafted, during the course of your investigation, by my count, 17 affidavits in support of search warrants for various places and things. Does that sound about right?
Sounds right.
And just so the jury's clear, a search warrant is an order that you obtain from a judge to allow the police to conduct searches of something that could be private, right?
Right.
And the law requires, in order for the judge to issue that search warrant, that there be drafted a sworn affidavit in support of it, right?
Right.
Where the law enforcement officer has to say under oath that the contents of the information contained in the application is true, based upon the best of the law enforcement agent's knowledge, right?
At that time, yes.
Got it. And for that reason, you're very careful in drafting the sworn application, right?
I try to be, yes.
Of course. 10 of the 17 search warrants that you did, 10 of the 17 affidavits or complaints in support of a search warrant that you did were prior to February 12, 2013 by my count. Does that sound about right? That more than half would have been before the February 12, 2013 interview.
I'll trust your count.
All right. And those warrants were issued by judges right in this building, right?
Right.
And part of the application for the search warrants included, search warrants I'm talking about, the number before February 12, 2013, included information provided by Andrea Wadinsky about the investigation, right?
Right.
And you have to tell these judges, in order to get the search warrant issued, that the people providing information are reliable, right?
Right.
And therefore, on this number of search warrants that you applied for prior to February 12, 2013, if there was information from Andrea Wadinsky, you had to indicate it was reliable, right?
Your Honor, I guess I'm going to object to this line of questioning as not being relevant. And also based on the fact that it was hearsay and those probably different, right?
So, pardon me, I didn't hear the latter, the third one.
No, that's it.
Also stay in the correction.
Just looking at my notes. Just stop down. Did Ms. Wadinsky, try that in inquiry. We better wait to see if the judge allows it. Did Ms. Wadinsky cause you to present to any judges of this county under oath information that was not complete?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevant, hearsay.
Sustained.
I have no further questions.
Three different questions.
Yes.
talk about number of...
Okay.
I want to start out with some statements of the defendant himself, all right?
Okay.
You recall driving with the defendant from the Wausau area to Lubino on 2 occasions.
Yes.
You recall in one of those 2 occasions that the defendant, in fact, admitted that he killed Stephanie Lowe, correct?
Yes.
He said it wasn't intentional, correct?
Yes.
Well, I'll object as argumentative.
He's not arguing with the witness, so overruled.
And then he defined what his understanding of intentional is, correct?
Yes.
Objection, cumulative. We've heard this testimony.
It's cross-examination, Your Honor.
You may answer.
And in fact, he said that was in response to your suggestion that he should talk to his attorney, correct?
Yes.
And he defined intentional as being something that was pre-planned and that someone follows through with it, correct?
Yes.
Objection, misstates the evidence. Plus, it is cumulative, despite it being cross-examination. We covered this one.
It has been covered. I don't know where you're going with this.
And that's my last question.
Okay. You may answer.
I think she did. Let's talk about Rebecca Torgerson. Rebecca Torgerson has provided you information relating to Stephanie Lowe that you've been able to confirm is accurate. Is that not correct?
Objection, argumentative.
That's an arguing with the witness, so overruled.
That is correct.
In fact, she told you that Stephanie Lowe was buried near Andrea's mother's cabin, correct?
Yes.
She told, and you confirmed that, did you not?
Yes.
In fact, found Stephanie Lowe's body near Andrea Wadinsky's mother's cabin, correct?
Yes.
She told you that Stephanie Lowe was buried under a rock, correct?
Yes.
And you were able to confirm that, correct?
Yes.
In fact, when you found Stephanie Lowe's body, as we saw in the video, you had to move a rock from over where the body was buried, correct?
Yes.
She told you that Stephanie Lowe was scratched the defendant, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, Andrea Wadinsky confirmed that she saw a scratch on the defendant's face that morning, correct?
Yes.
No one has ever reported to you or suggested that Rebecca Torgerson was with the defendant on October 10th of 2010, have they?
No, in fact, she was incarcerated at that time.
And so she would not have had the ability to know about those things unless somebody told her about them, correct?
Correct.
Let's talk about Andrea Wadinsky. You did a lot of interviews of her, correct?
Yes.
I think cross-examination of her counsel probably got into double digits of numbers of interviews with her, correct?
Yes.
Can you remember the details of every single one of those interviews, separate and distinct from another interview?
No.
Did you ever, in any of those interviews, ask her to tell you about what she said in another interview? In other words, say, can you tell me what you told me 2 weeks ago when I interviewed, or 2 months ago, or whatever it may be?
No.
You always asked her for what she remembered, correct?
Yes.
Andrea Wadinsky has also told you information that has been confirmed by your investigation. Is that not true?
Yes.
In fact, she told you that she went to the store located in Weston and met the defendant there, correct?
Yes.
She told you that they each purchased gas for their vehicles, correct?
Yes.
You were able to confirm that, were you not?
Yes.
Confirmed that by obtaining her bank records and the records of the store, correct?
Yes.
She told you that she directed the defendant to a hardware store that was down the road and told you what direction down the road it was, correct?
Yes.
The only hardware store that was in that direction would be Pinch's hardware store, correct?
Yes.
And you confirmed that the defendant in fact went there, correct?
Yes.
You confirmed that by talking to the people at Pinch's hardware store and obtaining the records of the purchase of the shovel, correct?
Yes.
And you heard the testimony from Mr. Moravec that Well, he couldn't remember for sure if it was the defendant. He described the defendant, did he not?
Yes.
And counsel ended up stipulating that that the defendant was in fact the person that purchased that shovel, correct?
Yes.
So that was confirmed with Andrea Wadinsky told you, correct?
Yes.
She also told you that Stephanie, that the defendant, when he returned to the cabin after attempting to, or after purchasing the shovel, noticed that there were people there at the cabin, correct?
Yes.
And you were able to confirm that as well, were you not?
Yes.
That you confirmed that, that through Mr. Eisen and the Facebook pictures, correct?
Yes.
Ms. Wadinsky also told you that Stephanie Lowe was buried near Andrea's mother's cabin, correct?
Yes.
And as we just talked about, you confirmed that as well, correct?
Yes.
And she also told you that Stephanie Lowe was buried under a rock, correct?
Yes.
And you confirmed that as well, correct?
Yes.
How many times did you give Andrea Wadinsky a report to review as to what had been discussed earlier?
One time.
And when was that?
In February of 2013, after her initial statement, I gave it to her once I completed it because it was very lengthy to make sure I had written down everything accurately.
And when was that you gave it to her? Was it in February or around February of 2013?
Yes.
Have you given her a report since then to review?
No.
There were some questions about the federal government providing some funds to Andrea Wadinsky. Do you recall that?
Yes.
They in fact provided her funds to assist her in relocating, correct?
Yes.
And that was based upon concerns for her safety, correct?
Yes.
She needed to move because of those concerns of her safety, correct?
Yes.
And they were concerned for her safety because of information she had provided, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Real brief, Judge. I understand Andrea Wadinsky hasn't reviewed any report but one. I think I understood that testimony, right?
Yes.
Just so we're clear, from March 8, 2011 till February 12, 2013, which by my count is about 30 months, you'll agree with me, she lied, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what happened in this courtroom, in front of this jury? She said she didn't remember those lies, right? Is that what she testified? Because we went through all those statements, painstakingly. She didn't remember her lies. Fair?
I believe she was having some confusion in remembering which statement was which, but yeah, she had difficulty recalling multiple statements that she had given that were untruthful.
Okay, let's see if we can make this easier. You can really aggregate her statements into two. Pre-February 12, 2013, and post, right?
Right.
Judge, I guess I'm going to object because this is beyond the scope of my cross-examination. If it was only going to be two questions, which is what I thought initially, I wasn't going to object, but I didn't ask her about whether she admitted to or didn't admit to lying on the stand. I asked about the things that were confirmed as being truthful. I did not ask anything about that, so it's beyond the scope of my cross-examination.
I thought there were questions about where she's showing reports to kind of back up why she didn't remember what she said previously. I thought that was inquired into too.
I asked if she ever showed her a report. Yes, but this doesn't have any, whether she lied on the stand or not when she testified, it doesn't have anything to do with whether she lied in the report.
But it does have something to do with, it is relevant. I'll tell you what, why don't I rephrase it with,
Okay, because you need to stay within the scope of his cross.
yeah, I understand that. She didn't remember a lot of the false information during the trial. During the trial, she testified she didn't remember some of the false information. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Objection, Your Honor, beyond the scope of my cross-examination.
Sustained.
Rebecca Torgerson, I think we talked in redirect about corroboration of what she told you, right?
Yes.
And what she told you is that Torgerson told her that Miss Lowe was stabbed by a knife in the neck, correct?
Correct.
And that the knife was still stuck in the neck, right?
It was still stuck in her. I don't know, she said in the neck.
Okay.
Still stuck in her somewhere.
Yes,
She didn't say it stabbed her anywhere else other than the neck, though, right?
right.
That's it.
The knife was still with Stephanie Lowe when her body was recovered, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you. You may step up. I believe we need to take a break here. There's another witness that's coming up from Milwaukee, so as soon as that witness comes, we'll resume. Okay, we'll be in recess. Witness comes.
Yes, sir.